The camera was hardwired into the walls. My stepmother's nails raked my arm as I ripped it from the wax, her phone recording every second. Now I'm locked in this bathroom with proof my own father authorized the surveillance. And the door handle just turned. The real betrayal wasn't the camera. It was the signature on the security contract. His. The scent of expensive Santal 33 clung to the silk wallpaper of Chloe's foyer, thick enough to coat Maya's tongue. Maya reached for the wick of a heavy, artisanal candle resting on the mahogany console, intending to straighten it for the inevitable brunch livestream. Her thumb scraped a cold, unnatural edge beneath the wax. She froze. Chloe's laughter drifted from the kitchen, a manic, practiced sound, tuned for a digital audience. Maya tilted the glass jar. Embedded deep within the cream-colored soy, a glass lens stared up like a dead eye. The pinhole camera pointed directly at the keypad where Maya entered her security codes every morning. Her pulse thrummed against her collarbone. She pulled her hand away, the porcelain surface suddenly slick with sweat. In the kitchen, a ring light hissed, casting a sterile blue glow across the hallway. The realization that her private movements were being harvested like raw data turned the air in the foyer thin and metallic. She looked around the room, and for the first time, the house didn't feel like a home. It felt like a set designed for a high-stakes play she hadn't auditioned for. Every shadow seemed to hide a microphone. Every decorative trinket felt like a sentry. She thought of her transcription notebook upstairs, the physical ink on paper that was the only thing she trusted. If she didn't record this moment, if she didn't find a way to prove the existence of this glass eye, Chloe would simply wash it away with a smile and a new vulnerability post. Subverted, Maya's fingers curled around the rim of the candle. She needed this. It wasn't just evidence. It was a physical piece of her stolen privacy she could hold in her hand. She began to pry the small black housing from the wax, her movements precise and desperate. She could hear the rhythmic thump-thump of her own heart echoing the ticking of the handless grandfather clock in the hall. Just one more second, she whispered to the empty air. The camera shifted, the wires groaning as they pulled free from the base. Maya felt a surge of triumph. She had it. She would take this to her room, record the serial numbers, and finally have a weapon to use against the gaslighting that had defined her last 5 years. She felt a rare spark of hope, a warmth that started in her chest and spread to her cold fingertips. She was finally taking control. The floorboards groaned with a sudden, violent weight. The door to the kitchen didn't just open. It slammed against the wall with a crack that sounded like a bone breaking. Chloe was there, her face a mask of performative outrage, her smartphone held high like a holy relic. The recording light on the back of the phone glowed a predatory red. "Maya, what are you doing with that?" Chloe's voice was an octave higher than usual, vibrating with a forced tremor. "I found it, Chloe. I know you're watching me," Maya said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. She gripped the candle tighter, pulling it toward her chest. Chloe lunged. It wasn't the graceful movement of the graceful parenting brand. It was a jagged, desperate scramble. Her manicured nails, painted a soft, deceptive peach, raked across Maya's forearm, leaving stinging red tracks that immediately began to bead with blood. "Give it back. That's a prop for the home safety segment. You're stealing, Maya. Are you having another episode? Are you trying to sabotage the family?" Chloe's eyes weren't on Maya. They were on the screen of her phone, ensuring the struggle was framed perfectly. She wasn't trying to stop a thief. She was directing a scene. Maya felt a sickening lurch in her stomach. By trying to secure the evidence, she had walked directly into a trap. Chloe wasn't hiding the camera anymore. She was using Maya's discovery of it to craft a narrative of a troubled, violent daughter for her 2 million viewers. The very act of uncovering the truth was being broadcast as a mental breakdown. Maya's triumph vanished, replaced by a cold, hollow dread. She had the evidence, but Chloe had the audience. And in this house, the audience was the only judge that mattered. Maya shoved past Chloe, the scent of the older woman's floral perfume clashing with the metallic tang of her own blood. She sprinted toward the stairs, her sneakers squeaking on the polished wood. She didn't head for her bedroom. That was too easy to breach. She ducked into the hallway bathroom and slammed the heavy door, the deadbolt clicking home just as Chloe's fists began to pound on the wood. "Maya, open this door right now!" Chloe screamed. The sound was muffled by the thick mahogany, but the vibration traveled through the frame and into Maya's shoulder. "We're supposed to be a team. Do you know what this looks like? You're acting like a fugitive. I'm calling your father." Maya ignored the wailing. She sat on the edge of the cold porcelain tub, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The bathroom light was a harsh, clinical white that made her skin look gray. She looked down at the candle. The pinhole camera hung by a thin, copper thread. She needed to see where it went. She needed to know who was at the other end of the wire. Her hands shook as she pulled a small multi-tool from her pocket, the one thing she'd kept from her mother's old gardening kit. Outside, the house had gone eerily quiet, save for the distant, rhythmic ticking of that handless clock. It was a silence that felt heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. Maya knew Chloe was out there, probably whispering into her phone, updating her community on the tragedy unfolding behind the bathroom door. Maya focused on the hardware. She peeled back the remaining wax, her fingers numb from the cold tile floor. As she dismantled the casing, her heart stopped. The wires didn't lead to a simple battery pack or a wireless transmitter. They were fed through a professional-grade conduit that disappeared into the wall, integrated directly into the house's main security infrastructure. Maya's breath hitched. To install this, someone had to access the central hub in the basement. Someone had to program the permissions. Someone had to sign the service contract. She recognized the serial number etched into the plastic. It matched the Sterling Security logo on the keypad by the front door. Her father's company. David hadn't just allowed this. He had engineered it. He wasn't a victim of Chloe's manipulation. He was the primary architect of the surveillance. The man who tucked her in and looked at his shoes whenever Chloe screamed was the one who had made sure there were no blind spots in his daughter's life. Maya leaned her head against the cold tile. The high-pitched electronic whine of the house's hidden systems suddenly loud enough to make her ears ache. The silence of the house was broken by the heavy, measured tread of footsteps on the stairs. It wasn't Chloe's frantic clicking of heels. These were the slow, deliberate steps of a man who had already lost his soul. "Maya." Her father's voice was low, filtered through the thick wood of the door. "Sweetie, please. Chloe is very upset. She says you're not yourself today." Maya stood up, her legs feeling like lead. She looked at the mirror, at the jagged crack that ran horizontally at eye level. Her own reflection looked back at her, split in two. "Did you put the cameras in the bathroom too, Dad?" she asked, her voice a flat, dead thing. There was a long pause. She could almost see him on the other side of the door, straightening his silk tie exactly 3 times. 1, 2, 3. A ritual of cowardice. "It's for your safety, Maya. The world is a dangerous place for a girl with your history." We just want to make sure we can reach you if things get bad again. The lie was so smooth, so well practiced, that it made Maya's skin crawl. Her history was a collection of stories Chloe had invented, the night terrors that were actually just Maya crying for her mother, the disappearing acts that were just Maya trying to find a corner of the park where no one was filming. "You're not protecting me," Maya whispered, though she knew he couldn't hear her. "You're just making sure the product stays in the box." She heard him sigh, a sound of profound, weary disappointment. "We'll talk about this later. Chloe is going live in an hour to explain the situation to the fans. She needs you to come out and show everyone you're okay. Just a quick walkthrough, Maya. For the family. The family. The brand. The community." The words were like stones being piled on her chest. Maya looked at the small black camera in her hand. She didn't answer him. She just sat back down on the edge of the tub and waited for the next chime of the clock. An hour later, the house erupted into a different kind of noise. It was the sound of emergency live energy, the clicking of light stands, the rustle of silk, the high-pitched fake laughter that Chloe used to signal to her followers that everything was raw and authentic. Maya crept to her bedroom door and cracked it open. Downstairs, the living room was bathed in the sterile blue glow of 3 different ring lights. Chloe was sitting on the velvet sofa, her eyes expertly misted with tears that wouldn't ruin her waterproof mascara. "Hi, guys," Chloe whispered into the camera, her voice a masterpiece of controlled grief. "I'm coming to you today because we believe in transparency here. We're going through a really difficult moment with Maya. She's had a very violent outburst, and we're heartbroken. We've decided that for her own safety, we need to do a formal evaluation. In 24 hours, we're bringing in some specialists to help her find her way back to us." The comments on the screen must have been flying by. Prayers, heart emojis, demands for more details. Maya felt a cold shiver. A forced psychiatric evaluation was the polite term for the transport teams who came in the middle of the night. It was the ultimate off switch for a daughter who had become a liability to the brand. Maya retreated into her room and locked the door. She needed help, and she needed it now. She reached for her laptop, but when she opened the lid, the screen remained black. She plugged in the charger, but the light on the side didn't glow. She ran her hand down the cord and felt the jagged, clean edge where the wire had been sliced through. She lunged for her phone, but the screen showed no service. She tried the landline on her nightstand, the one she kept for emergencies. But when she lifted the receiver, there was no dial tone. Just a flat, digital hum. She realized with a jolt that her Aunt Sarah's number, her only lifeline, had been blocked at the router level. Chloe hadn't just started a countdown. She had built a wall. Maya felt the air in the room grow heavy with the scent of furniture polish, lemon, and chemicals. It was the smell of the Sterling residence, the smell of things being wiped clean until they were unrecognizable. She looked at her transcription notebook, the one place where the truth still lived in ink. She had to get out. She had to find Caleb. She waited until the house settled into the uneasy quiet of the post-live slump. She could hear Chloe downstairs, probably arguing with Jennifer, her assistant, about the engagement metrics. Maya grabbed her hoodie, the fabric smelling of the ozone and old electronics she'd picked up from Caleb's lab at school. She didn't go for the front door. She knew the Sterling security system would chime the moment the latch moved. She slipped through the kitchen and into the garage. The air here was cooler, smelling of motor oil and the damp concrete of the suburbs. The rhythmic drip, drip, drip of oil hitting a metal pan under her father's car marked the seconds. "Going somewhere, Maya?" The voice came from the shadows by the workbench. Marcus, the security consultant, stepped into the pool of motion sensor light. He was a wall of a man, his military posture making him look even larger in the cramped space. He stood exactly 4 feet away, the combat gap Maya had learned to recognize. He was humming a low, gravelly tune, a sound that vibrated in Maya's chest like a warning. "I'm going for a ride," Maya said, her hand tightening on the handlebars of her bike. "Not tonight. Mom says it's too dangerous out there for you. Why don't you go back inside and get some rest? The doctors will be here in the morning." Marcus didn't move, but the threat was as clear as the heavy-duty zip ties sitting neatly on the workbench behind him. He wasn't just a consultant. He was a jailer. Maya didn't argue. She knew the rhythm of this house. If you couldn't go through, you went around. She dropped the bike, the metal clattering against the concrete, and bolted for the side door that led to the backyard. "Maya!" Marcus shouted, his heavy boots thudding behind her. She hit the grass, the scent of the perfectly manicured lawn rising up like rotting vegetables. She didn't look back. She scrambled over the first fence, the cedar wood biting into her palms. She was in the neighbor's yard now, identical white vinyl siding, identical federal blue mailbox. She felt like she was running through a hall of mirrors. She jumped another fence, then another, her breath burning in her lungs. She could hear Marcus behind her, his low hum replaced by the heavy grunt of exertion. He was big, but she was fast, and she knew the gaps in the suburban grid. She slid between two houses, her shoulder brushing against a thorny rosebush, and burst onto the sidewalk 3 blocks away. She didn't stop until she reached the small, weathered house at the end of the cul-de-sac. It was the only house in the neighborhood with peeling paint and a yard full of rusted electronics. Caleb's house. She pounded on the door, her heart hammering against her ribs. When Caleb opened it, he looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days. His hoodie smelled of solder and stale coffee, and he was picking at his cuticles until they bled. "Maya? Is the firewall down?" he asked, his voice rising in that characteristic question mark cadence. "They're coming for me, Caleb. Tomorrow morning. I found the cameras. My dad. He's the one who put them in." Caleb pulled her inside, his fingers moving with a sudden, frantic precision as he locked the 3 different bolts on his door. "I saw the live stream. The engagement was through the roof. People are actually cheering for the evaluation." He led her to his lab, a room filled with the blue glow of multiple monitors and the whirring of cooling fans. He took the pinhole camera from Maya's shaking hand and plugged it into a custom-built interface. "The encryption is professional grade," he muttered, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "It's not just a stream, it's a vault." Maya watched the screen as lines of code scrolled by, a waterfall of green and white that meant nothing to her but everything to the boy beside her. After a few minutes, Caleb stopped. His face went pale in the light of the monitor. "Maya, I found the cloud storage. It's not just you." He clicked a file, and a video window opened. It wasn't Maya's bedroom. It was her father's private study. David was sitting at his desk, his head in his hands, his silk tie undone. He was talking to someone off camera. "Chloe, I can't do it anymore, Chloe." David's voice was ragged, stripped of its usual corporate polish. "The fraud. The investigators are getting close. If they find the offshore accounts, I'm going to prison. I can't keep funding the brand at this level." Chloe's voice came from behind the camera, cold and sharp as a razor. "Then you better make sure the graceful parenting launch is a success, David. Because if I go down, I'm taking your tax records to the DA myself. Now, straighten your tie and go tell Maya how much we love her. We need the family reunion shot for the sponsors. Subverted. Maya stared at the screen, a strange sense of relief washing over her. This was it. This was the smoking gun. She wasn't just a victim of a toxic stepmother. She was the leverage in a high-stakes criminal conspiracy. Caleb, can we download this? If I show this to the police, if I show them that she's blackmailing him, the whole thing falls apart. They won't take me to the ranch if they see she's a criminal. She felt a surge of adrenaline, a belief that the truth would finally set her free. She imagined the look on the officers' faces when they saw the real Chloe Vance. She felt like she was finally winning. Caleb nodded, his fingers tapping a sequence that made the progress bar crawl across the screen. I'm syncing it to a secure drive? It'll be done in 2 minutes? They sat in silence, the only sound the hum of the computers. Maya felt her shoulders drop for the first time in years. She had her father back, or at least she understood why he was a ghost. She could save him. She could save herself. The progress bar hit 100%. Sync complete. Caleb reached for the drive, but his hand stopped midair. He frowned at the screen. That's not right. What is it? Maya asked, the cold prickle of unease returning to her skin. Caleb opened a secondary log. The file, it didn't just download, it triggered a notification to the primary administrator. Maya's stomach dropped. Who is the primary administrator? The answer came not from Caleb, but from the smartphone sitting on the desk. It buzzed once, twice, 3 times. A message appeared on the screen, a notification from the Sterling Security app. User, Chloe_Vance has accessed the blackmail_archive. Location, 142 Oak Street, Caleb_Miller_residence. Asterisk. Maya looked at Caleb, her world tilting. By accessing the evidence, they hadn't secured their safety. They had sent a GPS flare directly to the person they were trying to escape. She didn't just record him, Maya whispered, the truth hitting her like a physical blow. She set the files as a trap. She knew if I ever found them, I'd come here. She wanted to know who was helping me. The sound of a heavy engine idling in the street outside cut through the quiet of the room. Maya looked out the window. A black SUV with tinted windows was parked at the curb. The door opened, and Marcus stepped out, followed by 2 men in gray tactical polos, the transport team. Chloe had known. She had let Maya escape, so she could identify the bad influence and justify the abduction as a rescue from a dangerous hacker. Maya hadn't found the key to her freedom. She had handed Chloe the final piece of the narrative. She was no longer just a troubled teen. She was a runaway being manipulated by an online predator. The trap was shut, and Maya was the one who had turned the key. Caleb, run, Maya said, her voice trembling, but it was too late. The front door of the small house groaned under the first blow of a battering ram. The morning of her 18th birthday didn't bring the sun. It brought a thick, suffocating fog that clung to the windows of the Sterling residence. Maya sat in the trophy room, her hands tucked into the sleeves of her oversized hoodie. Her phone was gone, her laptop was a paperweight, and Caleb. She didn't know what had happened to Caleb after the men in gray had swarmed his house. Marcus had escorted her back in silence, the low hum of his dirge the only soundtrack to her defeat. Downstairs, the front door opened, and Maya heard the rhythmic, professional chatter of the transport team. Robert Garcia, The leader was a man who moved with a robotic efficiency, his lips moving silently as he counted the ceiling tiles in the foyer. "The contract is signed, Mrs. Vance." Robert's voice was like grinding gravel. "We have the transport logs ready. We'll have her at the Utah facility by midnight." "Thank you, Robert." Chloe's voice was bright, the sound of a woman who had just closed a major business deal. "It's just so tragic, you know. But we have to do what's best for the community. The fans are so worried about her." Maya felt a flare of white-hot rage. She looked around the trophy room, the glass awards for top influencer, the framed photos of a happy family that never existed. Her eyes landed on a heavy crystal award for authentic storytelling. A burner device in her pocket vibrated. It was a tiny, flat transmitter Caleb had managed to slip into her hood during the chaos at his house. A one-way communication tool. "I'm in the system," the text on the tiny screen read. "Plant the bug in the trophy room. I can't hijack the stream unless I have a direct line to the hub. Do it now." Maya's fingers brushed the small, adhesive disc. This was her last shot. If she could plant this, Caleb could flip the switch. He could show the world the cutting room floor. The hours of footage Chloe had edited out, the screams, the threats, the cold, calculated construction of a lie. She moved toward the central entertainment hub, a sleek, black box hidden behind a silk-covered panel. Her hands were shaking. She could hear the footsteps on the stairs. Robert and his team coming to collect the package. "Maya, are you in here, sweetie?" Chloe stepped into the room, her smile not reaching her eyes. She was wearing a soft, cream-colored tracksuit, the concerned mother outfit. She didn't have her phone out. This was a private moment, which meant it was the most dangerous kind. "The team is here, Maya. It's time to go on your journey of healing." Maya didn't move. She kept her hand over the transmitter, pressing it against the back of the silk panel. "I'm not going with them, Chloe. I know about the fraud. I know you're blackmailing my father." Chloe's smile didn't flicker. She walked closer, her heels clicking on the hardwood. "Oh, Maya, that's such a creative story. But who's going to believe a girl who's currently having a documented mental breakdown? Your father? He's the one who signed the commitment papers. He's the one who wants you gone so he can finally have some peace." She leaned in, the scent of Santal 33 thick enough to choke. "Your mother would be so ashamed of you. She was a performer too, you know. But she knew when the show was over. You? You're just a bad actor." The mention of her mother was like a physical blow. Maya felt the walls of the room closing in, the electronic whine in her ears rising to a shriek. "Don't talk about her," Maya whispered. "Why not? She's the one who left you in this house. She's the one who gave me the stage." Chloe laughed, a sharp, jagged sound. "And now, I'm going to use your recovery to buy the house in the Hamptons she always wanted. You're not a daughter, Maya. You're an endowment." Chloe's hand shot out, grabbing Maya's wrist. She saw the transmitter. "What is this? Another little toy from your hacker friend?" She reached for the heavy crystal award on the pedestal beside them. Her face twisted into something monstrous, something raw and unfiltered. "You think you can ruin this for me? I built this. I own you." Chloe swung the award, a glittering arc of glass aimed directly at Maya's head. Maya ducked, the heavy crystal whistling past her ear and shattering against the silk-covered wall. The sound was like a gunshot. "Robert, she's attacking me!" Chloe screamed, her voice instantly shifting back into the high-pitched, victimized tone of her videos. The door burst open. Robert and the transport team flooded the room. Marcus was right behind them, his face unreadable, his low hum vibrating through the floor. "Secure the subject," Robert barked. Maya was tackled to the ground, the cold hardwood biting into her cheek. She felt the weight of two grown men on her back, the air being forced from her lungs. A knee pressed into the small of her back. "I have a 911 call in progress," Chloe shouted, holding her phone up now, the camera active. "She's violent. She tried to kill me with the award. Look at the glass. Look at my hand." Chloe had scraped her own palm on the broken crystal, a smear of red that looked perfect for a thumbnail image. The sirens began in the distance, a low, mournful wail that grew louder with every second. The police were coming, but they weren't coming to save Maya. They were coming to witness the tragedy. "Get her in the restraints," Robert ordered. Maya felt the cold bite of the heavy-duty zip ties around her wrists. Her phone, the one she'd tried to hide, was pulled from her pocket and smashed under Robert's boot. "The broadcast is live in 5, 4, 3. Jennifer's voice came from the doorway, trembling but obedient. Chloe straightened her hair, wiped a stray tear from her cheek, and looked directly into the camera lens of the main tripod. "Hi, guys," she whispered, her voice a masterpiece of heartbreak. "I'm so sorry you have to see this. But this is the reality of mental health. This is the struggle we face every day. Please pray for Maya." Behind her, the transport team was hauling Maya to her feet, her face bruised, her clothes torn. The live light on the camera glowed a steady, triumphant red. Maya looked at the lens. She saw the transmitter she'd planted. It was still there, hidden behind the silk, just inches from the hub. She looked at Marcus. For a split second, his eyes met hers. He wasn't humming the dirge anymore. He was looking at Chloe with a cold, clinical intensity. "Robert," Marcus said, his voice a low gravel. "The police are at the gate. I'll go let them in." "Do it," Robert said, not looking up from his transport logs. Maya felt a sudden, desperate surge of strength. She didn't try to pull away from the men holding her. She waited until the camera was angled just right, until Chloe was in the middle of her vulnerability speech about the importance of tough love. Maya kicked out, not at Robert, but at the tripod. The camera tilted, the lens swinging away from Chloe's face and pointing directly at the silk panel where the transmitter was hidden. "Voice command. Override," Maya shouted, her voice raw. The room went silent. On the monitors, the image of Chloe's tearful face flickered and died. It was replaced by something else. A split screen. On one side, the live feed of the room. On the other, a montage of the last 48 hours. Chloe screaming at Jennifer. Chloe planting the camera in the candle. Chloe whispering to David about the tax fraud. And then, the audio. "You're not a daughter, Maya. You're an endowment." The words echoed through the house, amplified by the high-end speakers Chloe had installed for her meditation sessions. They echoed through the 2 million smartphones of her followers. Chloe froze. The blood drained from her face, leaving her airbrushed skin looking like a wax mask. What is this? Jennifer, turn it off." "I can't," Jennifer screamed, her voice cracking. "The system, it's not responding. It's like the house is talking to itself." The police burst into the room, their weapons drawn, their faces grim. But they didn't look at Maya. They looked at the screens. Marcus stepped forward, his military posture more rigid than ever. He wasn't holding a weapon. He was holding a digital recorder. "Officers," Marcus said, his voice clear and authoritative. "I am Detective Marcus Reed. working undercover on behalf of the Colorado Child Protection Agency and Sarah Thompson. I have 18 months of continuous surveillance evidence regarding child endangerment, illegal surveillance, and financial extortion. He looked at Chloe, and for the first time, he smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. The show is over, Chloe, and the audience is calling for an encore. The transition from the sterile, blue-lit nightmare of the Sterling residence to the golden, mountain-edged silence of Colorado happened in a series of blurred, quiet movements. There were no cameras in the back of the police car. There were no microphones in the lawyer's office. Maya sat on the porch of her Aunt Sarah's cabin, a heavy wool blanket wrapped around her shoulders. The air here didn't smell like furniture polish or expensive perfume. It smelled of pine needles, wood smoke, and the sharp, clean scent of coming snow. In her hand, she held a physical notebook. Not a transcription of a recording, but a journal. Her own words, written in her own hand, for no one's eyes but her own. The fallout from the live broadcast had been a tidal wave that leveled the graceful parenting brand in a single afternoon. Chloe was facing charges of child endangerment, surveillance fraud, and a dozen other felonies Marcus had documented. David was in a different kind of prison, a legal reckoning for the fraud that had started it all. He had called her once, his voice small and broken, but Maya hadn't answered. She didn't need to hear his lies anymore. She had the truth written down. She looked out at the horizon, where the jagged peaks of the Rockies met the darkening sky. There was a peace here that felt physical, a weight lifted from her shoulders that she hadn't even realized she was carrying. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her smartphone. It was a new one, a gift from Sarah. She opened the settings, her thumb hovering over the delete account button for her social media profiles. She thought about the millions of people who had watched her downfall, the people who had cheered for her abduction, the people who had turned her life into a spectator sport. She didn't hate them. She just didn't want to be part of their world anymore. She pressed the button. The screen flickered once, then went dark. Maya Sterling took a deep breath, the cold mountain air filling her lungs. She looked at the mirror in the hallway, a simple, uncracked piece of glass. She didn't look for a hidden lens. She didn't look for a good angle. She just looked at herself. She was 18. She was alone. And for the first time in her life, she was completely, beautifully invisible. The rhythmic clicking of her pen was the only soundtrack to the night, a quiet, steady beat of a life being lived on its own terms. The record was finally closed. The end.